Sahadavatu Sahadavatu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvinavaditam Astu Ma Vidvishavai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May that one protect us all, protect us both. May that one nourish us. May we have vigor in our studies, illuminating energy also. May we not cavil with each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Janora Martanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. We salute Krishna, son of Vasudeva, destroyer of all our lust and greed and evil tendencies, supreme delight of Devaki, God himself, Guru, eternal teacher of the entire universe. So normally we begin off with some questions. If there are no questions, there are no answers. Yeah, you're surprised now, aren't you? Questions?
When you pray there, you ask, may the one protect us. Protect us from who or what? Protect
our studies.
Oh.
Yeah. Protect us because we're in a study mode. So may that one protect our knowledge, is what it is. Very often these talks are listened to, but what is retained? So this is a prayer really for teacher and student, that may our studies be, the knowledge from our studies be protected. May we be nourished by these studies also. And may we have some energy and vigor, and in brackets not fall asleep. See? Things like that. You see, we're suffering essentially from ignorance. We have to have knowledge. Knowledge is the antidote. But this is not academic university knowledge. It's not information transfer knowledge. It's not about facts and figures. It's not about the secular world. It's about some very profound principles. And this is the difference between scriptural knowledge and other kinds of knowledge, what is described as aparavidya and paravidya, lower kind of knowledge and a higher kind of knowledge. Higher in the sense of deeper, more fundamental, and more in tune with the fundamental purpose of life, which is to realize essentially our own freedom. And so all scriptural injunctions are aimed at us, not at God, to make a better world, but us about what we should do and what we shouldn't do, guidelines with the idea that we can catch our attention just for a moment and guide it in the right direction. And if we can do it for a moment, through practice, we can extend that to a few moments, and more and more. So many people find it difficult, for example, to meditate. Meditation, we try and meditate and so on. Very difficult for us. Yes, but first of all, do you understand the purport of meditation? Do you have the necessary qualities and the necessary preparatory background to it? And then do you have the will to implement it? And do you have the purity of mind? Do you have the patience, the persistence? And you'll get the reward in a commensurate measure from it. So, although we understand through two principal means, where we should be aiming for, what we should be doing, and what the truth of something is, I put as a subject for this evening that there is something called direct knowledge and indirect knowledge. And the principal teachings are to do with indirect knowledge. Do we have some kind of indication of what that might be? The Katha Upanishad uses some interesting terms technical terms, linga, alinga. So, linga is a kind of sign, a signal, some inference, some inferential indication that something is there, even though we cannot directly see it. And in studying this Bhagavad Gita, we have got to a point where many, many glories, many examples of manifested glories are there for us, first of all, to get an internal lift from understanding and appreciating it, and seeing them as linga, as signs, as signals. Some signpost is there, and if we have a mind, we can see that everything that we see, everything that we hear, touch, taste, everything that we experience is essentially a fundamental sign indicating there's something behind, something behind. And when we get an idea of something behind, maybe it'll occur to us. It's not just behind, it's coming through. And so in the last few stanzas that we studied last week, or the week before last, we discussed Krishna's point of view, standing in the role of Paramatma, the Supreme, and saying, actually, you're dwelling in me. Just to review what we studied. See, all this universe is pervaded by me, he says, in my unmanifested mode. All beings exist in me, but I do not abide in them. That means I'm not limited, like a bird in a cage. There's a song, English song somewhere, probably in the Victoria era, that I'm like a bird in a gilded cage. A song that goes like that. So do we feel that we are somehow imprisoned? Vedanta says we are free. How is it that we feel bound? So nature has this arrangement whereby we feel we can't escape. In fact, we don't even think about escaping, for the most part. And I think it was last week I gave an example of a bird. You want to trap a bird, you make an arrangement, and the bird gets in, or even a mouse will get in. You make a nice entrance, make a bait, it goes in, then it doesn't know how to go out. It looks around. It doesn't think that where the entrance that I used can be also my exit. We feel somehow like that. What is our problem, our difficulty? Our difficulty is found in these passages. And the formula for freedom is also in these passages. So he goes on to say, just to remind you, Nacha mastani bhutani pascha me yugam aishwaram, nor do the beings dwell in me, behold, my divine yoga, something indicating like a mystery. He could have easily said Maya Yoga, bringing forth and supporting the beings. See, bringing forth and supporting both. This is a very important term, a very important concept. Because some theologians will tell us that an entity created us. The theological expression is ex nihilo, from nothing. But even a 5-year-old will tell you, from nothing comes nothing. You cannot get existence from non-existence. This is a fundamental principle. Even modern science, in their modern cosmology, going back to what they call Big Bang, postulates that something comes from a nothing. And a man called Krauss has actually written a book, This Universe from Nothing. Of course, it's a kind of catch phrase and concept, and it's designed to sell a large number of books, because it's a very controversial statement. Can we really get something from nothing? But what he really means is nothing known. And there we find a compatibility in our ideas. Yes, there is the known, that philosophy calls the phenomena, and then there is the unknown, that we call the noumenon. This is Kant's philosophy, phenomena, noumenon. Only Kant makes this one error, that the noumenon can never be known. Vedanta says the noumenon can be known, and two methods are there. The first method is this indirect way. There's a wonderful, beautiful stanza. In fact, it's the opening stanza to the Yoga Vashishta, a conversation between Vashishta, the great sage, teaching Ram, who is in despondency. But yata sarvani bhutani pratibhanti stitani cha. So yatraivo pashamam yanti tasmai satyamane namaha. Salutations, it says, to that reality in which all beings, that means all the elements, all the animate, inanimate entities, all these beings, and then there's this beautiful, beautiful term that is used, pratibhanti, that shining forth, you see, a kind of image of things are shining, and behind it is an even more spectacular, yet unseen and unknown, shining thing. In many other passages, that shining, all things shine. Whenever we look in a human being's eyes, we see a shining element, life flowing through the eyes. We know when a person is animate, and I certainly know when a person is sleeping. So these characteristics are there. Things are living, things move, things have life. In that way, life is a kind of shining quality. And then we find light in the form of daylight. The sun shines, the stars shine, the moon has reflected light. And here even we find electricity manifesting through these various adapters called light bulbs, shining forth. And it is these light bulbs, if you like, in the universe, what is called upadhi, unfortunately translated in English as adjuncts, things which are somehow connected. That means that we are restricting the full blaze of what is behind, the glory of this light, if you want to compare it like that, and it's being restricted and channeled in different ways. But we can look at it in another way. Are these not manifesting adapters? Is it not that behind the light bulb there's a beautiful flowing current, ever present? Something like what is described as Akasha. Akasha, loosely translated variously, space. We can say that the electromagnetic wave system is a kind of Akasha. We cannot see it. But what is the clue that it's there? Is that when we put a suitable adapter and catch it, then we have manifested light or heat for cooking. And in the electromagnetic wave system, you have free energy, although your supplier charges you for it. The fact is that when you use a mobile phone, you're tapping into radio wavelengths. But it's not that you provide or made them or manufacture them. They're there. And where we sit here, they are here. When we talk then about this supreme entity that will give us this completeness and freedom, we should go from a beginning position that thinks, I am some separate entity, independently operating, with my particular concerns and worries and difficulties, looking for something more expansive and beyond me. I am here is my question, and looking around I say, where is God? Instead of that, will I not graduate to a position which gives me more satisfaction? More satisfaction means, if I say, I am here, where is God? Then what it means is, I have a deficiency somewhere. There's no fullness in me. And because of that, I feel a lot of painful situations, pressurizing me. I say on many occasions that more or less everybody is suffering. All the scriptures are all designed to relieve suffering. What is freedom? Getting out of the bondage of suffering. Everyone has suffered in the past physically. Even now people are suffering. Some of you are suffering through this talk. And then in the future, pretty much all of us will suffer. It's just, in Ramakrishna's language, the rent we pay for the body. The body is a machine. If we don't look after it carefully, naturally it'll break down. And anyway, it's designed not to last forever. Give other people an opportunity. The whole key to reincarnation is found in the body itself. All your cells are renewed every 7 years. It's a new body. And then psychologically, more or less everybody is suffering. What's the cause of the suffering? Taking oneself as an individual unit in combat with the rest of the world, trying to formulate a reaction that will suitably sustain me. And yet I don't have to worry, because according to the scripture, I am being sustained. Not only am I projected as a being and manifested, and it's not my choice, it happens. Not only that, but that entity is keeping things moving, sustaining me. And not only that, but at the end of the drama, drawing me back to that same entity. I used to teach children just a small phrase. Life is a journey. Got them to repeat, life is a journey. We come from God and we go to God. This cyclical way of thinking of it is not the way that some theologies will view it. And it's not the way that human view views it. We think that we start at a point and we go on linearly, and then there's a full stop. And then we panic and wonder, well, that's it. And in between we have to find some meaning. So we don't think that we come from nothing. There is an eternal thing that is continuously erupting, living, dissolving over eons of time. And so this is the background to it. And so the stanza that we pick up today, or this evening, says, Yata kasha stito dityam vayu sarvatraga mahan tata sarvani bhutani matstanitya upadharai. That is, as the mighty wind moving everywhere. The wind is something that we are familiar with. It's a bit like the ocean. Sometimes the ocean is calm. The calmness of the ocean itself depends on the wind. But we can see what terrible destruction moving wind can have, called hurricane. It can uproot mighty trees. A house that you carefully constructed, even with steel and all the available materials of today, will just be smashed into pieces in a few seconds. So this mighty wind is there. Now, of course, we know that in the tattvas, that is the various principles or elements within the universe that describes the universe in well-organized categories, we'll find that this Vayu is a compounded version of this Akasha. And so what does this Vayu fit into? This air that seems to be omnipresent everywhere, and that we breathe in, and that contains oxygen. This kind of air is not found, as far as we know, anywhere else in the universe. This kind of air is only here on Earth, as far as we know. Of course, we know on many planets there are winds, there are hurricanes. But the kind of chemical composition that we find here suitable for our organic breathing is, as far as we know, not found anywhere else. But this oxygen is ephemeral. If I ask you, I wonder, can I get some more oxygen? Will you please go to the, I think Super Value has it. Please can you fetch me some oxygen? That would be an absurd point of view. It's right here, where we are. It's an all-pervading kind of entity. I don't have to go elsewhere to get it. It's right here where I stand. And if we want to use a religious language, something I repeat very often, is this beautiful phrase from this wonderful author, Joel Goldsmith. God is here, God is now, God is love. How is it we didn't notice it? How did we not catch it? How didn't we tune our attention into it? The signs are there. The linga is there. There's no smoke without fire is an example of linga. Smoke, when you see smoke, automatically you think there's fire. If you go to a river and you see on the bank a golden crown, a scepter, royal silk clothes, then you'll assume that the royal king is bathing. Although you didn't see him, still that's your assumption. On the other hand, if you go to the river and see ragged clothing, a beggar's tattered clothing, and all soiled and dirty, then maybe you think a beggar is bathing. So these are the various signs. We just have to be observant. We have to tune our attention into the obvious thing which is there. It's like a puzzle, these are the clues. Like a trail, please follow this trail. These are the clues. Everything shining, all things shine. Did you notice? Did it lead you to a position of adoration and wonder and thankfulness? So, all this universe pervaded by me in this unmanifest form, and then, as I say, as the mighty wind moving everywhere, ever rests in this akasha. Something has to be in space. Something has to be in the subtle area. In modern science, they did away with this akasha, translated as ether. From Einstein onwards, did away with it. But nevertheless, it's kind of coming back. And this akasha, what is it? It's something that is unseen, something that is pervading everywhere, but within it, you'll find many, many different things. You'll find electricity, magnetism, light, everything is there in the electromagnetic wave system, enabling us to communicate day to day, but we hardly think of it. We take it for granted. In the same way, we take this presence for granted. Every day you're using a mobile phone. It's now become the fashion. It's a good thing and maybe a bad thing also, because it diverts your attention. Everybody, in the middle of everything, phone rings, immediately there's impulse. Let's take it. Unless you use my technique and leave it until there's a set time when I look at the calls, and then people complain. I kept phoning you. What happened? So, either way, what we are doing is we're tuning into the electromagnetic wave system and catching these radio waves that are boosted everywhere. These microwaves are there, and we have technology to catch it. In the same way, we have organic technology. The human body, the mind, the brain is equipment fully available to tune into this entity. But is that the end of it? And how does modern science square off with this, having abandoned the ether? It says the fundamental building blocks, which you thought was the atomic structures, is all gone. It's all quantum fields. Some vague kind of ocean of something that cannot be seen, cannot be described. We know it's there. Something that is erratic, something that bubbles up, appears and disappears. Is this language familiar to you? Something appears and disappears, something changes. This is the language of the Vedas. This is the language of Vedanta, the language of the Upanishads. And we call this nature Maya. What is the cause of it? The cause of it is apparition, what we call vivarta. Something appears. It's not actually what is there. It looks so real. It feels so real. And without this deluding component, life doesn't exist. Life doesn't continue. The game stops. So blessed in the sense, blessed are the deluded, but I hope they shall be free. And so, know you that so do all beings rest in the ultimate source, me. And Krishna is saying me, not in this physical form, not in this human organic state, but me in depth, me as a cosmic mind. It comes from there. So Sri Ramakrishna says this, though the wind carries the good and bad odor alike, it remains unaffected by both. Parabrahman, that is the Supreme, is in this wise, in this way, unaffected by the phenomenal universe. It's a bit like when we say, we praise or blame God. We praise God for the good things, we blame Him for the bad things. An unsuspected God saying there, so sitting there. Or another complaint came to my office. What happened? Oh, somebody died here and they're blaming you. Or something happened here and they're blaming you. It's like we decide that we'll explode the entire planet through our carelessness and stupidity. And then we say, why did the sun not prevent this? No, the sun shines forth. It doesn't care, in that sense, whether you use your foolishness to blow the world up. Why? All life comes from the sun, solar energy, and yet the sun beams regardless. It's what we call immanence and transcendence. And I think last week I may have told you a story in connection with it. I will tell it again, just in case you missed it. And I'm not sure when I told it and who I told it to as well. But you see, I suppose every story we have to say once upon a time. I think I told it on Sunday actually. But once upon a time, we're God's children, so bear with me, live with the once upon a time. You see, there was a corporation called Glass Pane Incorporated. So many glasses of panes of glasses were there, and they made this complaint, day after day, day after day. The sunbeams come through us, and there's no visa, and they don't pay any fees, and it comes free of charge, and they just go through these panes of glass. And we're tired of this. We think that we should get some dues here, put a toll on. So they formed what they called a Glass Brexit Committee. And there they decided at a board meeting, from here on, we will ban the sun from beaming through us. And so next time, when the sun rose, they jostled together and put all their efforts together to stop all the beams coming through, and shattered themselves to pieces, fragmented each other hopelessly. But the sun continued to shine. When the sun was shining through the glass panes, is what we call immanence. And when the glass planes are shattered, is what we call transcendence. That being that is beaming is not affected. It doesn't move. It doesn't get affected. It neither affects nor gets affected. You can compare this now to theology, where some theologies will say that you should not be sinful, and what is sin? It's an offense against God, as if God can offend or take offense. So it may be good at early stages of convenience to have these concepts, but as we grow in our understanding, we see that we should grow in our concepts. Our whole experience should deepen, and we should understand a truer position. And the beauty about the Vedanta philosophy is that it goes, it has a capacity to shift your view in order to see things from a different point of view. So what is this different point of view so far? Different point of view is whatever there is pervaded. Pervaded by something profound that sustains. A beautiful glory that we need to catch. And how deep is it? How much of a substructure is it? Well, there's an example. The wind is moving. But behind the wind, and the wind is subtle, and behind the wind there is this Akasha. And behind this Akasha, from there is the Supreme. Sarva Bhutani Kuntaya Prakritim Yanti Mamikam Kalpa Shaye Punastani Kalpadau Vishrayami Aham. All beings, O Kuntaya, go into my Prakriti, my nature. My nature, some of it we understand, some of it we don't. It's vast, and it's changing, and it's ephemeral. At the end of a kalpa, not at the end of a line, at the end of a cycle. What are these cycles? Eternal cycles, eons and eons, not merely thousands of years, but untold, infinitesimal periods of time. And in previous stanzas we went through this. In the last chapter we went through this. What is a day of Brahma, and so on and so forth. 4.32 million years, and times that by 1,000 and so on. Day of Brahma, and then a night of Brahma, and so on, amounting to eons and eons and eons. And I mentioned before, Carl Sagan, the great scientist, said this is the one system that has this concept of immense, infinite time. And then again on the other side, we have this Truti, infinitesimally small, incomprehensibly small, this kind of concept. But behind all of this, we find there is a freedom. But it says at the end of a cycle, that is, everything is pushed forward and taken back, like the ocean breathing, as it were, onto the shore and retreating, like the tide coming in and the tide going out, like the breath going in and the breath going out, in a kind of rhythm. Imagine this on a cosmic, unimaginably huge, vast scale. Today, with modern technology, we look out, as it were. We cannot fathom the depth of what is there. Several 100 trillion galaxies, stars, and so on, beyond measure. And an amount is given, such as so many, trillion and so on. But it's another way of saying we don't exactly know. Otherwise, it would be several trillion and one, or something like that. This is an estimate. So, when this creator, and we use this convenience language, because really, the real language should be a technical term, vrishjami, projector, project, something's projected. Do we have some example of that? The Upanishads give it. Like a spider weaving a web from itself is the expression. Something manifested from itself. That we have an example of. Or hair growing. When a spider weaves a web from itself, it didn't co-opt a Mrs. Spider to do it. Nor did it start from a nihilistic position, nothing. From itself it weaved it in this same way. Now if you ask, how did God create this universe from nothing? It becomes an awkward question. Understanding that there is a beginning, and in modern cosmology it's encouraging this, what we call a creation cosmology, where a Big Bang is postulated. But now people understand, no, there are other cosmological theories out there, I mentioned this before, cyclical understandings. Now, modern science will assure that to some extent, because they'll say, if there is a cycle and then another cycle, there'll be accumulation of material, and so everything will get bigger, and it'll become impossible, because you have to carry over, since the laws of conservation have to be there. But they don't understand this, because what they're saying is, in this cyclical model, it's all disappearing, it's all being wiped out and starting again. So it says, I generate them again at the beginning of the next kalpa, and we have no idea how many times that does. This is a universe. There have been countless universes before, and there will be countless universes hence. And so when this creator goes to sleep, as it were, at the end of the cycle, withdraws, just as we ourselves withdraw our waking world into the internal world of dreaming, and then even that disappears into a dreamless sleep, just as this happens, in this same way, the whole universe disappears, making everything consistent, our own experience and the universal experience the same. This extends into 1,000 yugas, 1,000 ages. It works into an incalculable crores of years of the human standard. Then the entire manifestation goes into the unmanifest state and remains dormant for an equally long period, which is, of course, equivalent to the Brahma, the Creator's night. And then after a whole lifetime of that, even the Creator disappears and comes out anew, a different one. And when he wakes up again, the universe with its multitudinous beings comes into manifestation again. This is an eternal process. Prakritim swam avastabhya vishjami, there's that term, puna puna, bhuta gramam imam kritstam avasham prakrite vashat. Animating this, my nature, my prakriti, my nature, not something separate, my nature. What does it mean? So in the tantric language, Shiva Shakti, Brahman Maya, these are equivalent terms. This Shakti, this great energy being crystallized, manifested and condensing as this universe. And what does modern science say? Everything is energy. E equals mc squared, the famous equation Einstein put out, says that it's all energy. There's nothing more than energy. And quantum mechanics says the same. It's only an energetic field which is there, and things pop in and things pop out. And they borrow time from the future. There's no past, present, or future. It's a different concept, a different world, the fundamental level. So subtle. If we can't even understand our own universe in a subtle way, how can we possibly understand what is beneath it? And as a causal manifester. And so it leads us to a direct experience by taking these various signs and evidences, all these various objects and signposts, and understanding the fragmentation of it, like a rainbow, you see. Yesterday, I think it was, we saw the most magnificent rainbow in the eastern part of the sky, and a complete rainbow as well. Complete means a complete semicircle was there. And naturally, Swami Purnananda, being a very keen photographer, dashed in and captured it and gave it to us over WhatsApp. And then he remarked, maybe there's a pot of gold at the end. You see, I can assure you, there's no pot of gold at the end. And if your angle of vision changes, because what is the rainbow? It's the light, the photons, reflected from water molecules and displayed in this way for our admiration. But if you go and touch it, it's very difficult. It's ephemeral. Furthermore, if you change your angle of vision and go above the clouds, it's gone. So the philosophical question, does a rainbow exist or is it non-existent? Counter question has to be asked. Where are you standing? If you stand at a suitable angle, it exists. Go above the clouds, it's gone. Both are true, but where are you standing? Again, immanence, transcendence. But what is this rainbow, this fragmentation of color, as it were, this fragmentation of energy and light? Same thing we find in the world. What we see as the world, our final conclusion must be that this is nothing more than the fragmented divine. Seemingly fragmented, we have to put in. You can't fragment an absolute. So seemingly fragmented divine. And surely we should notice it from time to time and have the capacity to shift our attention from our insular way of thinking and our insular way of being hurt and pain, and broaden this vision to understand, no, there's a different way of looking at it. And when the pressure mounts there, we can shift our attention and look at it from another different point of view. And this is what our scripture does, gives us this opportunity. So it says that animating my prakriti, I send forth again and again, and you might say again and again and again, all this multitude of beings, helpless under my regime of nature and nature's forces. You didn't choose to be born. Helplessly you came here. You didn't choose to look a certain way. Helplessly it arrived. And you won't improve by having surgery and saying my nose should be better looking if it's on the back of my head. It's not designed like that. So there are strictures there. You can't change it. Certain things are fixed. I often joke, when somebody says, I ask, how did you come here? They said, I flew. I said, it's much better to take an airplane. So flight is not our nature. We cannot spontaneously fly, nor do we have to, because human intelligence is a way of short-circuiting evolution, and just by inventing an aircraft, we can have the same effect as a bird and fly much higher and much faster. So helpless, all these beings are helplessly projected and helplessly withdrawn, swept away by the current of nature and current of life. Are we free, therefore? So this question comes up about free will very often. Do we have free will? This is a very favorite argument that has lasted eons, seemingly, in philosophy, in theology, and so on. Do we have free will? And the answer is freedom and will, and I'm using Vivekananda's counter-argument, these are incompatible terms. Because will means there's a preceding thing there. Some preceding causal relationship has to be there. If I will to move a chair has to be there. And so, I don't have that freedom. But there's a free entity deep within that is an area of freedom not tied up with causal relationships. Is there free choice? That's something different. There's an area of freedom, an area of choice, but the choice itself is limited. Sri Ramakrishna, very simply explaining this whole question, says, you see, it's like a calf being tethered by a rope to a pole and given an area to graze on in a field and thinking, I am free. No, you're tethered to a post. You can only move in a certain direction, and it feels like freedom, no doubt. But go beyond your boundary, it's not possible. So in contrast to that, can we say that the manifester is also bound? Does this mean that the actionless self within us, called Atman, is also occasionally active as well, and therefore bound, not free? So a clarification has to come, and it comes in this next stanza. Nacha mam tani karmani nibadanti dhananjaya udashinavad ashinam ashaktam tishu karmisho. Nor do these acts, O Dhananjaya, bind me, who remain like one unconcerned, unattached to these acts. See, we know whenever we do some action in a detached way, we experience a level of calm and freedom. All the anxiety associated with work goes off when we do it in a detached way. If we're attached to it and to its results, it creates anxiety. And I think I may have mentioned, I'm not sure what class, that I was at a conference at Trinity College once. And there were various speakers throughout the campus talking on various subjects. And during the tea break, I happened to just make conversation with somebody there, and I said, so what are you speaking on? And his shoulders went back and his chest expanded, and he said, oh, I'm going to tell people how important it is to set goals and to have goals in life and to be the best achiever you can be. And you have tremendous potential to achieve all these goals. And I laughed. And he said, oh, this is obviously funny to you. So very kindly I said, well, to be honest, I don't have any goals. He was shocked. No goals? I said, no. Therefore, no anxiety. You have goals, you'll have anxiety, because goals are future-orientated. Anything that is future-orientated will give you enormous stress, and you may say, will I fail? And every time you try and make even a prayer at the fundamental level in religious life, beginner's level, you say, may I have this, may I have that, with the, in brackets, assertion, I don't have it. May I have this, I don't have it. Every time you say, I want it, is coupled with, I don't have it. Plus one, minus one, you get nowhere. Sooner or later you realize something else has to come in. That is, maybe there's a fullness already. Maybe I don't have to go and get anything. Maybe what I require is here, is now. Maybe what's obscuring the here and now is my urge to look for it elsewhere and in the future. And do I get anxiety when I look at it that way? Yes, I do. How will I avoid it? As I avoid anything else when my attention is captivated in this present moment. I'll always tell about a devotee, no names, no title, who told me that he attended a concert. I said, that's wonderful. How long for? He said, 4 hours. I said, what wonderful powers of concentration you have. He said, no, everybody sat there for that period of time. It was very entertaining. Your attention was captivated for that period of time. We can easily concentrate if the mind is fully occupied and entertained. If it's captivated enthusiastically, then it's very easy. Concentration is very easy. And so why can we not concentrate on, say, God or the truth, meditation, sustained concentration? How is this so difficult for us? It's because we're not enthused with the joy that is underneath everything. The sweetness of devotion, for example, the sweetness of love of God, tasting just a small morsel of it. This is why the great mystics and saints go into this joyful ecstasy, an ecstatic state. It's not a struggle for them. It's a delight. It's tasting and exploring the depths of their own being, whose nature is bliss. And so, Sri Ramakrishna makes this comment. When egoism goes, all miseries vanish along with it. When the devotee gets fixed in the conviction that whatever happens is by the will of the Lord, and that he is merely an instrument in his hand, mukti, freedom, is ensured for him in this very birth. This is worth repeating. When egoism goes, all miseries vanish along with it. What do we mean by egoism? We mean a fixed position that identify in a local way, I am this, I am that, associated with a physical presence and a mental personality. And we combine, say, this is I. And we attach to it and don't look beyond it or within it. But when that sense goes, then the devotee, that is, somebody who's decided systematically to take their attention and steered in another direction, a more profound direction, a more joyful direction, in the conviction that whatever happens is by the will of the Lord, that is, we are helpless in moving on. And is there free will? Well, actually, it's all by God's will. How do we breathe? By our own will. How do we digest our food? By our own will. Who digests your food? You eat it and then follow it with a spoon, give it a stir? No, nothing like that happens. Did you decide today so many heartbeats are necessary? There's no personal will in this. This is happening automatically. Not just in you, but in every cell, even in the bacteria, knows how to respond and how to bifurcate, how to, from its own substance, make more of it, increase the population, just by dividing the cell. How does it know how to do this? How does a flower know how to defy gravity, or a tree know how to defy gravity? How is it that you and I cannot fly and a bird easily just does it? How is it that the whole of nature works in a syncretic way? How is it that when we have a careful observation about all this wonder and glory, that we don't see that's a wondrous mechanism and some inherent intelligence is inside it, behind it, working from within? So the conviction is, this is all God's will, if you want to put it this way, a divine will. That means all the stress is gone. If I have confidence that nature that provides all the seeming problems has all the solutions within it, then why should I worry? Why can I not be a person who takes a telephone call? Lord, it's for you. And that he is merely an instrument in his hand. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace, says St. Francis. Supposing I just take that view, I am an instrument. You use me as you want. I won't complain because I'm your instrument. It's my delight to be your instrument. I think there's a song like that, Banshari, that is the songwriter is saying, it's my delight to be a flute in your hands, O Krishna, and you play me as you want. In this way. Then if you have this attitude, then freedom is ensured because already you feel that freedom. We'll do one more stanza and then next week we'll pick it, week after next we'll pick this up again. I have some announcements to make before we finish. So we'll lay out the stanza and go into it in more detail when we can. Maya jakshina prakriti shuchate sacharacharam hetuna nina kontaya jagat viparivartati. Because of my proximity, this is how it works. Prakriti produces all this, not by any action I do in a human sense, or in the sense that we're familiar with, the physical cause and effect that is required for something to move, Newton's force that creates acceleration and movement. No. Just by my proximity, by my being there, everything else moves. Produces all this, the moving and the unmoving, the world, therefore revolves, O son of Kunti. I stand there, you can understand it from magnetism. See? So a magnet is there and things revolve then. Or a magnet is put under a piece of paper with iron filings and they coordinate according to the position of the magnet. The magnet doesn't do anything, it just stands there and things are attracted to it, that kind of concept. Or in an electrical motor, the idea of a magneto being there and everything moves as a result of its presence, that kind of thing. Some magnetic thing being there. So we'll pick this up next next time, not next week. Why not next week? Because next week we have a talk by Pravrajika Prabhupada. I hope you'll all attend. And the subject is an interesting subject. I forgot what it was, but you would be advised by email, and if you're not on the email system and the WhatsApp, then you need to either join through the website or leave your details clearly in block capitals on the visitor's book. And then, of course, next Sunday there is a retreat by the same Pravrajika Prabhupada, who's a prolific author and an authority, I would say, on Sister Nivedita, and also Sarah Bull and various others. She's written a number of books, and so we are privileged and honored for her to be here on Sunday morning. We start at 10 o'clock on the dot, and continue with the cycle till we'll have lunch, and then we'll finish off there.
In between tea?
In between tea. Tea is in between as well. So come for the tea if nothing else. And then the tea will be very good. We recommend the tea. And then also, the Enneagram and Essence of Truth is a course that is taking place on the 29th and 30th, which is a weekend. And so I'll be issuing a leaflet on that shortly. And that is worth attending. Those who have attended from here will view it as something of a milestone. When we discuss this question of egoism, the idea is we don't have standard egos. These develop from a number of things. Firstly, inheritance, what we call genetic inheritance, and what we philosophically call previous life. And so that's one factor. Modern research has shown that this component is about 50% of our personality. The other 50% is to do with nurture. That is, when we're 1 foot and everybody else is 6 foot, we have to respond to the demands of our parents, whoever played the parental role, and form a certain personality compulsion. And this is what we call egoism. And it's something that we're very proud of, but it's something that is our great enemy, because it's constricting us and allowing us to regress and not progress. So it's discovery of this that we do. It's called Enneagram and Essence of Truth. Otherwise, we can also equally call it Sankhya and Vedanta, using different language. So if you want to book up on that, I recommend you book up by confirming your presence on the course by email. And if you don't have my email, shame on you. If you don't have my email, then ask me and I'll give you a card. It's the best way, probably. We finish off then. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. And even having said that, I normally, in the last 2 minutes, invite any questions, final questions. Yes?
Is the retreat this Sunday? Or next Sunday?
Okay, this is an Irishism, so there's always confusion. So it is the coming Sunday, the 23rd. Is it?
Yeah,
Sunday?
this Sunday.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. You call it this Sunday? Or
Yeah.
next? This Sunday. This Sunday. This coming Sunday. Yeah.
23rd.
23rd.
Yeah.
23rd. This coming Sunday. Yeah. And then next Tuesday, whatever date that is.
25th.
25th. Yeah. And then the Enneagram is the 29th and 30th. It's one weekend. There is a second weekend, second part to it, which is also necessary. It's the more important part. And it's scheduled at the moment, but normally what we do when we meet on the first weekend, We ask the participants if that weekend is okay, and by consensus we select a suitable weekend that is free. Any other questions?
Swamiji, are samadhi and nirvana the same thing? Just different duration?
Yes, pretty much. See, nirvana means the cessation of all desires.
And is that a constant thing? That's for forevermore, is it?
Well, if you have no desires, and then a desire comes, then that's not the end of the desire. So all desires are extinguished completely. Our biggest problem, the only thing that inhibits our freedom, is the presence of desires. And desires can be subtle. Again, coming back to this Enneagram process, when we think of desires, sometimes we think a desire for an object. But we never have a desire for an object. We have a desire for something that the object gives. There's a psychological desire. There are subtle desires. Desire to feel wanted, the desire to feel praised, the desire to be organized, the desire to be perfect, the desire to be perfect in a human way, not perfection as such. So there's a desire to be thanked, a desire to be rewarded, a desire to feel fulfilled. So all of these are various desires, and as long as we have a desire, it means I'm not full. What is a desire? It's a feeling that inwardly there's a gap that has to be filled from the outside. When all that goes, then it's all extinguished. Now the positive side of that is what we call samadhi. So samadhi means that you're transcending all of that. Of course, there are different types of samadhi which come into really two types, two categories. There is saguna, nirguna, and so on. So we find, but the ultimate, of course, is equivalent to the salt doll that Ramakrishna mentions, entering into the ocean and not returning.
So is it desire that stops samadhi and brings one down?
As long as we have a desire, then evolution continues.
So
As long as we have a desire, nature keeps us in a position where the desire will need to be fulfilled. And this eternal round of desire is what we call samsara. So as long as we're on a wheel, it's like a hamster going a wheel and complaining. And as it goes round, shouting, how do I get off? How do I get off?
Like when Sri Ramakrishna went into samadhi, what stopped that and brought him back? Was that desire?
Well, that's a special case, you see. So there are those who attain this highest, but for the welfare of the world, they engage an ego. Ego is not the problem, because if you take the ego and make it an open channel to manifest God's grace for others, that's something different. This is what's called the ripe ego. So it's not ego that's the problem, it's egoism. And egoism is sustained by desires. Because desire is orientated toward me, this concept I want this, I want that. So you probably now desire to eat or sleep, whichever. All right, we'll leave it at that.